The Magical Flight of Dodie by F.C. Shaw. Chapter 2. After a usual supper of herb soup that night, the Roos went up to the roof. Lately, Taj spent the evenings poring over the race course map and inspecting Sand Surfer for loose threads. Gamal left to lock up the village gates, one of the many side jobs he had taken on to pay for Taj's registration in the Grand Flyer. Dodie and his grandfather, Nadar, stargazed. Nadar Roo was the racing legend of the county, but now he was a cripple, confined to a one-passenger rug. Though Nadar's muscles had deteriorated and old age had set in his bones, he still had the look of a racer. He was long and lean, and he kept his white hair cut short and his face clean-shaven. He never complained about his disability, but there was a hint of sadness in his eyes. He spent his days keeping house and making meals, jobs he had taken on ever since Dodie's mother had died. His carpet, burnt orange and henna-colored, bent itself into a chair shape so Nadar could recline comfortably. At night, the carpet straightened for him to sleep on. "Would you like a story tonight?" croaked Nadar, gazing up at the stars. Dodie nodded. "The one about your last race." "Again, eh?" Nadar smiled, his face creasing into 1,001 wrinkles. "Well, you know the Grand Flyer occurs only every 5 years, and the Grand Renegade is usually the same year after the Grand Flyer. I raced in 3 Flyers and 2 Renegades. The 3rd Flyer was my last race. Your grandmother tried to convince me not to race that last one, but I really wanted the prize." "One wish granted from a genie," recalled Dodie, "and the treasure." "That's right. The race was typical. There was the usual trek across the dunes, a nice route by the seaside, the occasional band of thieves or run-in with a ghoul. But on the last day, a sandstorm kicked up. Now, I had flown through my share of sandstorms before, but this one was like nothing I'd seen. It was more like a sand hurricane. I thought I could get ahead of it in time to finish the race, but it overtook me." "But you still won the race," said Dodie. Nadar nodded. "At great cost. I made it across the finish line and tried to stop, but the wind was too strong. The wind slammed Phoenix against the Capitol wall. I was riding on my knees, so my kneecaps shattered. I fell off Phoenix and landed unconscious. When I awoke, the storm had passed, and the race officials had finally found me. Phoenix had covered me to protect me from the storm. If it wasn't for her, I might have died." "But carpets don't have a mind of their own," countered Dodie, "or their own will." "Ah, but when a carpet and its rider have been together for as long as we were, a special magic forms between them." "Grandpapa, do you regret not using your wish to heal your knees? You could have kept on racing." Nadar gazed up at the black sky glittering with stars. "I chose to make a much more important wish, and someday I'll tell you about it." This year's Grand Flyer was scheduled for the first week of spring, so as the last few days of winter waned, the village of Tura was swept up in the preparation and anticipation for the race. Racers campaigned for sponsors, which involved plastering the adobe walls with posters listing their strengths and racing experience, both of which were highly exaggerated, such as, "Racing is in my blood. A blood sample is available upon request." Gamblers cast their bets, which were officially recorded on a long scroll and locked in Magistrate Oxard's vault. While everyone was allowed to sponsor and bet on any racer from the 5 competing villages, it was considered near treason to do so for a racer not from one's home village. One man was refused service at the wishing well because he backed a racer from the next village over. The race was all everyone talked about, and streets and alleys became hazardous to traverse because the racers were practicing non-stop. or at least were trying to intimidate each other with their threading. Rue's Rug Emporium was not exempt from it all. Daily, the store was bombarded with people purchasing new carpets for the journey to the capital where the Grand Flyer would finish. Long runner rugs, called caravanners, were the most popular sale since they carried up to 18 passengers. Dodie had been spending every day helping in the shop and every evening helping Taj practice takeoff speed. Besides the Emporium, the Seer was the next most sought-after service in the village. Racers, sponsors, and interested parties lined up outside her tent, hoping to hear words of good fortune or prophecies about the Grand Flyer. As a contestant, Taj was expected to visit the Seer, as any word spoken over him would affect his sponsorship. He invited Dodie to go along with him, hoping that perhaps the Seer would have a good word for Dodie in regards to his fear of flying. The two brothers arrived just before closing time. They thought they were the last visitors of the day until Atala and the village alchemist, Roz, showed up. They all stood under a tall palm tree shading the Seer's tent. "Taj, Dodie," Roz greeted with a head nod to each. To Taj, he said, "Good luck in the flyer. Your grandfather must be very proud." "Thank you, sir, he is," said Taj. "How's the threading, Atala?" Atala grinned at him. "Better. I've been practicing a ton." Whack! A palm frond whipped through the air and smacked Atala in the back of the head. "Crazy tree!" Atala rubbed his scalp. "You need to do something about it." He scowled at Roz. A few of the palm trees in town had become victims of Roz's alchemy experiments and had taken on personalities that ranged from playful to vindictive. Dodie had gotten on the good side of a palm growing by the wishing well and could always count on getting a shower of dates from it. For whatever reason, this palm by the tent had a grudge against Atala and kept taking swings at him. Atala dodged away from it and took a seat on a rough wooden bench outside the tent entrance. "Listen, Taj," Roz said, "I'll be sponsoring you, no matter what the Seer tells you." "Thank you, sir," Taj grinned. "Of course, you're like family to Binny and me." A head poked out from the tent. "The Seer awaits," a small withered man whispered to them. Taj and Dodie ducked through the low doorway and into the tent. The boys stepped over baskets of fresh herbs that made them sneeze, and dodged hanging jars of exotic beetles, lizards, and scorpions. They swept aside layers of sheer fabric until they found the Seer sitting cross-legged on a round pillow. She was shrouded from head to foot in black fabric with a thin black veil covering her face. Dodie could never tell if she was awake or asleep or even if she was looking at him. A large gold pendant engraved with a sun hung around her neck. She was fanning herself, for the tent was very warm and stuffy. The air was thick with incense that made Dodie sleepy. He and Taj sat before her and waited. The Seer stopped fanning herself and raised a hand over them. She put her head down and rocked gently back and forth. Suddenly she cried out with a loud voice, causing both boys to jump. "You will triumph over both soul and body and have a change of heart. At journey's end you will be victorious and find more than you seek." The Seer stopped rocking and resumed fanning herself. Taj and Dodie waited a few seconds, unsure if she was finished. When she pointed to her money box, they paid her and scrambled to their feet. They stumbled over baskets and ducked under jars and out the tent. They nodded farewell to Roz. Atala, who was glaring at the palm tree that was still trying to whack him, ignored them as they hurried home. "So what do you think that prophecy meant?" asked Dodie, hurrying to keep up with Taj's long strides. "It's got to be a good prophecy, right? It mentioned I would triumph and be victorious." Taj bounded along with a spring in his step. "Whatever it means, it'll get me sponsors." "Do you think it means you're guaranteed to win?" asked Dodie. Taj stopped in the alley, his tall figure casting a long shadow as the sun set behind them. "I'm thinking it does," he said in an excited whisper. "The seer's never wrong, is she?" Dodie's face clouded. "My prophecy hasn't come true yet." "It will. Trust me. You'll fly someday. And don't let anyone get to you, especially Atala. You hear me? One day you'll make them all eat their words. Plus, there's so much more to you." Taj threw an arm around his brother's neck. "I was hoping she'd say some good luck to you." He stopped and turned back toward the seer's tent. "Where are you going?" asked Dodie, running to keep up with him. "Getting you some good luck." Taj stopped outside the tent at a clay pot hanging from the awning. Painted on the clay pot was "Good Luck Charms, 1 shekel." Taj picked out a small amulet made from clay. It was a burnt red color and had a flame carved on its face. "Don't spend your last shekel on that," said Dodie. "It's just a trinket. It won't bring me luck." "You don't know that." Taj dropped the shekel into the clay pot and handed the charm to Dodie. "Carry it with you for a while and see if your luck changes." They started for home again. "Hey, do me a favor and don't tell anyone about my prophecy yet, okay?" said Taj. 2 days before the grand flyer, the Ruse completely sold out of carpets. Dodie excitedly watched his father tally up the sales, and he caught a small smile behind Gamal's beard. "Is it enough, Dad?" he asked, leaning his elbows on the counter and eyeing the columns of gold coins. "Is it enough to pay off Hadi?" Gamal looked up at his son, and Dodie's excitement fizzled. His father was looking at him, but his eyes were glassy, which meant his thoughts were far off, calculating their plight. Gamal was rarely present. His mind was always elsewhere, usually in the grips of stress. "Nah, not enough." Gamal's bushy brows knitted together. "Got to keep some money to buy more rugs to sell, see?" He scratched a number into his ledger. "It's never enough." Dodie watched his father and suddenly realized how old he looked. He had to turn away before he got sad. That evening, they were to attend the magistrate's banquet, a special dinner for all the Grand Flyer racers, their families, and sponsors from all 5 of the competing villages. Everyone dressed in their best clothes and came groomed and smelling of jasmine. The dinner was held in Magistrate Oxard's inner courtyard, a spacious patio laid with turquoise tiles and containing a shallow pool displaying a gorgeous glass mosaic beneath the water. A generous spread of breads, meats, fruits, and wines kept the company full as they mingled around. When the Ruse arrived, Taj was immediately whisked away by a large group of sponsors and girls with not-so-secret crushes on him. Dodie spotted the other 4 racers from Tura: Atala, Randy the baker's son, Axel the carpenter, and Bay the magistrate's nephew. There were also plenty of other people Dodie did not recognize, for they were from the other villages. A small crowd gathered around Nadar, both to pay their homage to the racing legend and to glean tips about winning the Grand Flyer. He generously shared stories with them and signed autographs. Gamal took a few carpet orders from customers. Dodie hung back, unsure of what to do or who to talk to. He avoided Atala and the other racers and figured he'd stay away from Taj too. He didn't want to be that annoying little brother clinging to Taj. "Is your brother seeing anyone?" a voice behind him asked. Dodie spun around to face a slender girl wearing too much rouge on her cheeks. What?" "Seeing anyone?" she huffed impatiently. "Does he have a girlfriend?" I don't think so." "Really? Tell him Celera thinks he's cute and I want to go out with him and I'm dying to ride on a racer rug and I would totally love for him to take me on a ride, especially at night under the stars and—" "Actually, he does have a girlfriend," Dodie lied quickly. "What?" screeched Celera. "How could he? I'm in love with him and I know—" "Sorry." Dodie dodged away from her. He was relieved to spot Benny splashing his hand in the pool. "Hey, you here with your uncle?" he asked Benny. Yeah, he almost didn't let me come, though. How come? Dodie noticed several fresh bruises running up Benny's arm. Benny hastily pulled his sleeve down and dried his hand on his lap. "'Cause I got mad at him for sponsoring Atala." Dodie's eyes widened. "He told us he's sponsoring Taj." "He changed his mind," Benny said. "I'm not happy about it either. I told him Atala's a bully, but my uncle wouldn't listen to me. Said Atala's a good bet." "What about Taj?" Dodie pointed to his older brother, who was signing a girl's wrist cuff. "He's sure to win." "I don't know. He said he knew something about Taj that made him go with Atala," said Benny. "What? What does he know?" Dodie felt his insides squirm, thinking about Taj's prophecy. "He didn't tell me," Benny shrugged. "Hey, I finished that new potion. You should try it out tomorrow." "No offense, Ben, but I'm a little scared of your potions." Benny looked slightly hurt. "I'm sorry about giving you the runs. And boils. Don't forget that one. Oh, and there was that one potion that turned my pee blue." Dodie couldn't help laughing at this. Benny joined him in his laughter. "Sorry! I'm positive this new one won't have any side effects. I tested it on Jinx." Dodie rolled his eyes. "You forget I'm not a pet tortoise." The rest of the evening, Dodie and Benny talked about the Grand Flyer and their village's 5 racers. They did their best to avoid Atala, who followed Taj around and ended up getting 2 more sponsors by doing so. The magistrate made a welcoming speech that was long and boring and included lots of cliches about unity among the villages and good sportsmanship among the racers, all of which nobody believed in. To prove this, a fist fight broke out between Axel the carpenter and a Shirley racer named Nye from the village Alsta. The guests cleared out of their way, and several sponsors even made quick bets on the fist fight. Magistrate Oxart called for order and repeated a line from his speech about peace and goodwill, but nobody heeded it. Eventually, the 2 racers fought their way out to the street. The seer attended the banquet as an honored guest, and while she was not technically on duty, she couldn't help making curt predictions over people. She was still hidden behind her thick veils, which made her look like a ghostly shadow among the living. "Your cow will get loose tonight," she threw out in passing to a man stuffing bread into his mouth. To another, "She doesn't love you anymore. And you, yes, you, look under your bed for your missing sandal. Madam, stop lying about your age, or a curse will befall you," and so on. She came up beside Dodie, causing him to jump in alarm. "Rue boy, you must not doubt your prophecy." Dodie swallowed his bite of lamb. Yes, madam. But when will—" "Soon enough. In the meantime, eat up." Dodie did not have to be told twice to eat more. He went back to the banquet table for several helpings, for he wanted to feel positively stuffed. It had been far too long since he'd had a full belly, and he figured it would be a long time until that happened again. His grandfather's seasoned water wasn't cutting it. He noticed both his father and brother going back for seconds and thirds also. The magistrate closed the banquet with a little memorial to his son, Petra, who had perished in the last Grand Flyer 5 years ago. Oxnard lit a candle, called for a moment of silence, then prayed for the safety and good fortune of all the racers. It was well past midnight when the Roos finally headed home. Dodie perched on the edge of Nadar's flying carpet. Taj rattled on about his evening as a celebrity and about the girl, Solara, who gave him a kiss. "You don't look too good," Dodie pointed out. Taj rubbed his belly. "I think I ate something that didn't agree with me." "Probably just nerves," Nadar assured him, "though you do look pale." When they got home, Taj went right upstairs and collapsed on his bed. He gave a groan as Dodie entered the room. "You okay?" he asked. Taj whimpered. "I really want to throw up. I think I'll feel better if I do." "I never feel better when I do," mumbled Dodie as he slipped off his sandals. Taj moaned and rolled over. In a few minutes he was asleep. Dodie yawned and soon drifted off. What seemed like minutes later, he was awakened by a gagging noise. "Taj?" he called in the darkness. More gagging and choking. Dodie lit the overhanging brass lamp. Taj was shaking and making gagging noises. Foam bubbled from his mouth. "Dad!" Dodie screamed. "Grandpapa, quick! It's Taj!" Gamal rushed into the room, followed silently by Nadar on his carpet. Gamal gripped his son to try to steady him. "Taj, can you hear me?" Gamal got right in his son's face. Taj gave one last cough, then fell still, his eyes rolling back in his head. "Dodie, get the alchemist, fast!" Dodie bolted downstairs, unlocked the back door, and dodged down the alley. The full moon cast silver beams that lit his way as he skidded around dark corners and ran through the deserted streets. He arrived at the alchemist's shop and banged on the door. "Roz! Sir! Wake up! Benny!" he yelled, beating the door. A light turned on upstairs. A few minutes later the door opened. Both Benny and his uncle gaped at him. "Dodie Roo, what is it?" Roz inquired in a groggy voice. "Taj!" Dodie panted, leaning against the door jamb. "Choking! Gagging! He fainted!" "Let me grab my kit!" Roz dashed inside. "He's sick?" asked Benny. Dodie gulped air. "He ate something bad." "Let's go." Roz reappeared, carrying a square basket with a handle, and followed the boys back to the Roo house. Dodie led the way up to the 3rd floor, where Taj lay unconscious. Roz knelt beside the boy and examined him. Dodie lingered back, not wanting to get in the way or see Taj lying there like a corpse. Everyone watched Roz, waiting for a diagnosis. With a grave face, he turned to Gamal. "He's still alive," he confirmed. "He's sick?" Gamal asked, his hand still gripping his son's arms. Roz frowned. "He's been poisoned."